Welcome to the Dynasty 365 show. We're here tonight, as always, with our Fantasy and Frames very own Roy Kent, Bill Mustafa, and I am your host, Stacy Perez. Tonight, we are so excited to have Mike Bauer from Dynasty Rewind joining us. This week, we're going to be catching up on all the news from around the league and doing a deep dive into some of your favorite rookies from this year's class. Hey guys, remember to like this video, subscribe to our channel on YouTube, and head on over to fantasyandframes.com to get more fantasy football advice from all of us over at the Fantasy and Frames crew. So we're welcoming our guest tonight, who is a huge Eagles fan, huge Penn State fan. That would be Mike Bauer, notably the host of the Dynasty Rewind podcast. You can find all of his content, everything on your favorite podcast platforms. You can also follow him on Twitter at Rewind CEO. Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Stacy, thank you for having me here today. Bill, it's nice to meet you as well. I'm excited to be here. And yes, I am a huge Eagles fan. Are you going to have any questions about that? I was looking at the show sheet, seeing what Jorge was saying. You have any Jalen Hurts questions? You want to get that out of the way now?
Questions. How about this? Who would you rather hang out with as far as Kelsey brothers, Travis or Jason?
Jason.
Why?
Because Jason Kelsey, I've never met anybody that's not from the city of Philadelphia that embodies the city of Philadelphia like Jason Kelsey does. Travis seems like a cool dude, but I don't really hang out with cool people. I hang out with people like Jason. So for me, give me the better of the two Kelsey brothers, in my opinion.
Would you also sign a baby like Jason Kelsey would?
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
I will do anything for money, literally anything. Here's $5, sign this baby. Deal.
Bill, how was your birthday?
That was my birthday?
Oh, no, that was Bill. Bill had a birthday last week.
I was going to say, my birthday was in January. It was okay. But Bill, happy birthday to you. Happy belated, man.
We were very excited that Bill is joining us from home and not from a London jail cell, thankfully. So.
Yeah, it was my birthday.
All right, guys. So a few quick news.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, it was good, Stace. Too much drink.
Oh, as always, as any good birthday should have, just a little too much of all the good things. So we're going to jump into a few news things this week, just a couple things before we get into.
I managed to get back to the next episode.
Well, listen, we are glad you're here because we'd be lost without you 100%. So guys, I hear Mac Jones wanted to trade, but it looks like the Patriots are shopping Mac around. Mike, what do you think? Like, are we going to have Zappy Hour coming up, or are they going to draft somebody?
I don't know. It's a really good question. It just seems weird. I don't understand why. The New England Patriots are one of those organizations where they have to realize that not every quarterback is going to be Tom Brady. You can't just have a 6th-round draft pick come out and be everything when you don't give this guy any weapons. Ramondre Stevenson's fine. But Jacoby Myers was their main guy last year. They need help at the wide receiver position. You have to give this guy a chance. He was a 1st-round draft pick for a reason. But I think if Mac Jones were to get traded, the organization seems to like Bailey Zappi. And Bailey Zappi was a guy who was going super late or undrafted in your rookie drafts. So the value is definitely there. I'm not going to say trade him right away. I'm going to say ride him, see what you got as a quarterback 2, quarterback 3, and super flex. But, I mean, somebody will get drafted. I don't know if it's like a 1st or 2nd round draft pick, but they'll take a shot at a developmental guy, most likely.
Definitely. I was a big Zappy fan last year. I thought his story was really fun to watch. Shout out Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. Bailey Zappi, alum from there. So another news to talk about all the way across the country out in LA. We've got Austin Ekeler still kind of wants a trade, once out of LA, it seems. I saw today that he had tweeted about, or had, I think on Sirius interviewed, saying that it was a punch in the face that he hadn't been extended or anything like that from the Chargers yet. What do you think about that? Do you think he's actually going to go?
I think he's almost a 28-year-old running back who is a UDFA, and while he's really productive, you signed the contract, dude. I get where you're coming from, but at the same point in time, this is the business that you chose to be in. Sometimes you make your bed, you got to lay in it. Is it a slap in the face? Yeah. Anybody that has ever worked anywhere for any amount of time in their entire adult life has felt underpaid and underutilized and underappreciated. Okay. It's just, I wish my problems were as bad as Austin Ekeler. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
dude, come on. Like, I get it. I understand how you feel, but at the same point in time, who is really going to trade you and pay you what you think you're worth at this point in the offseason when the running backs that are coming in can do what Austin Ekeler does? Good luck.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Bill, what do you think? What do you think about Austin Ekeler?
Yeah, I couldn't agree anymore with what Mike said. Like you said, you signed the contract. You know what it is. If you would have underperformed your contract, would you be barging into the office saying, "Listen, you guys are paying me too much. I'm not performing up to this deal"?
Bingo.
He's not going to do that, is he? So
No.
You signed the paper. You're an adult. You're a grown man, and like you say, he's soon to be 28-year-old running back in a league that doesn't seem to value running backs. Why is anyone going to trade and give draft assets and pay Austin Ekeler when they can go and draft a guy like Jamal Gibbs early if they want to pass catching back, or late go and get a Kenny McIntosh who can do the pass catching work? It's just he's got no position. He's not in a position of power. Yeah. I don't think he's going to get anywhere. I think he's going to end up staying in LA.
Yeah. And don't forget, he's a UDFA. He's making $6.2 million this year. Yeah, there's a $1.5 million prorated bonus, no roster bonus, and he has no guaranteed salary either. So the fact of the matter is, they could just cut him and they'll save. They'll have 1.5 million dead cap, which in the NFL isn't much. So, Austin, you might want to zip it a little bit, because if you keep running your mouth, you're probably not going to make 6.25 million somewhere else. They'll sign you cheap somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. So enough of the news, everything like that. Let's get into some of these rookies. I want to talk quarterbacks. Specifically, I want to talk about CJ Stroud, and I want to ask you guys, is he the best in this class? Is it even particularly close with any of the other rookies? Bill, I know you're a big CJ Stroud fan. What do you think?
I think he's QB1 pretty easily. I think he's the one you have the least amount of questions about. He, for me, has the highest floor. And I think he's a guy that's going to come into the league. I think he's going to get drafted first overall to Carolina. And I think he's going to be a guy that we look at and go, pretty soon after being drafted, he's in the top half of NFL quarterbacks. He has, the ability. He's got the arm strength. He's got the pocket awareness, and he's got, the ability to hone in and find the targets down the field that he needs to. And he's a guy I really like.
Yeah, I'm a big fan too. Mike, do you think he's a starter from day one?
Well, you never know. I think he should be a starter from day one, to be honest with you. I haven't graded out the quarterbacks yet. My scouting's almost done with it. I just haven't filled out the scouting reports to grade anybody. But just based on what I see so far, he is my quarterback one as well. I like Bryce Young too a little bit. I like what I see. I have size concerns with Bryce Young. I don't have that with CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud, he has an NFL arm. I think Will Levis's arm is a little bit stronger, but he throws receivers open. He has really good ball placement. 9 times out of 10, he sets his feet really well, which is very good for your arm strength. If your arm's not the strongest in the world, but you have good mechanics, it is going to give you better throws than if you have a cannon, but you have bad footwork. That was actually a knock on Gardner Minshew, why he was a 6th-round draft pick coming out, because he would always set his feet too narrow. And the next year when Anthony Gordon came out, even though he was a UDFA, should have had a shot somewhere. His base was much better. So these are just things I pick up from watching other people and how they scout and stuff like that, stuff on YouTube. But CJ1 should be the quarterback one. And depending on where he goes, like I said, throw him in there day one. Let him rep.
Yeah. Now, Bill, you mentioned Carolina. Do you think that he would be – I think somebody mentioned Carolina. Anyway, Bill, do you think that's a good spot for him? Do you think that's where he's going to end up?
Yeah, I think it's the perfect spot for him. I think, he can work with Frank Reich and Josh McCown. Josh McCown seems to like him. If you've seen him on the YouTube video that he did about him, I see as well. They were talking about CJ Stroud and Josh McCown playing some golf when he eventually moves to Charlotte, almost giving a little little sneak peek of who they're going to take first overall. I think it's the perfect fit. It's where I want to see him go, and I think that it's where's best for him to start his NFL career.
Yeah, I love him going with Frank Reich and really having that really seasoned coach there to help develop him and just bring him along. I think that's a great fit. But Mike, you have any other options, any other good spots that he could land if Carolina doesn't want to take him?
I mean, Houston and Indy are two places I like. They're two places where a quarterback is needed. Another interesting spot, I think, too, just given the fact that the Rams were shopping Matthew Stafford, if they would move on from him and get some picks and move up and draft CJ Stroud, would be interesting. I don't think it happens, to be honest with you, but it's just an interesting possibility. Hey, maybe the Patriots will draft him if they move on from Mac Jones.
I think I remember the Rams GM wearing a shirt that said something about those picks, right? Do you guys remember that during the
I do remember that, yeah.
Yeah, if you guys
now,
does it? Google it. they might need to find some picks somewhere. All right, guys. So last question about Mr. Stroud. All right, Ohio State notoriously has a curse with their quarterbacks. So is CJ Stroud going to be the one to break the curse? Bill, what do you think?
I mean, I think Justin Fields has already broken it. I think Justin Fields has shown that Ohio State quarterbacks can be competent NFL starters. Whether or not they go to competent NFL franchises is another story. But I think he's shown that he can be a starting quarterback in this league and a pretty good one. And I think CJ Stroud continues that, and it's a bit of a success story for Ohio State quarterbacks the last few years.
Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that. I mean, it's hard to say. Like, okay, who are some of the other notable ones that have come out? We have Justin Fields, like Cardale Jones, but Cardale Jones.
Bill's face.
Some of these guys, it's okay to be a good college quarterback and not a good NFL quarterback. That's perfectly fine. There's guys that play in schools, they just don't work out in the NFL. So I always tell people don't scout the helmet. But I agree with Bill. I think Justin Fields has already broken that curse. Justin Fields can make all the throws. So can CJ Stroud. So it's up to the Bears now to see what they want to do. We're going to do something about it. Are we going to make this guy a competent player by surrounding him with weapons, good running game, good line, good receivers?
Yeah, Justin Fields saved one of my fantasy teams bacon last year, so I have nothing but love for Justin Fields.
There you go. See?
All right, guys. So, let's talk about some of the sleepers. There's a lot of talk about your big names, your Bijans, CJ Stroud that we just talked about, all the guys that everybody's getting a lot of press on. But I want to know who are some sleepers for this year's rookie drafts. Like, who are some guys that nobody maybe is really focusing on? The media is not really on. You're not seeing them online at all. So, Mike, give me a couple of the guys that you're really into this year.
Yeah, so when we talk sleepers, we're talking late round draft picks, okay? And like I always like to tell people, if you're drafting starters in the 4th and 5th round of your rookie draft, you are doing something vastly wrong with your dynasty team. But one of the guys that I like is Jaden Reed out of Michigan State. Jaden Reed, 18.4 breakout age. So he was 18 and less than a half years old. His player profiler comp is Stephon Diggs. Ever heard of him? Pretty good. Not saying that Jaden Reed is the next Stephon Diggs. Well,
we got a Bills fan up there.
But, these guys, this can happen. If Jaden Reed's drafted in the 4th round, he gets a good landing spot. He can be a competent player. He probably should have came out, not after this past season, but after the season before. Michigan State had a really good team. They had a really good season. But he came back, and he kind of fell off a little bit, as did Michigan State as a whole. But his best season, 59 catches, 1,026 yards, and 10 touchdowns. He did start at Western Michigan, and he transferred up. So like Nate from our podcast always says, it's really good when a guy transfers up. So he went from the MAC to the Big Ten, finished his college career with almost 3,000 yards receiving and 26 touchdowns. And he's a late-round pick right now. He's like a 4th-round pick, late 3rd, early 4th, something like that. You can do worse than Jaden Reed. That is for sure. Because, look, it gets gross down there sometimes in that part of the draft. So take a shot on a receiver who can do pretty much everything. And the guy's 6 foot 185, so he's no slouch either.
No, it sounds like he's a lot bigger than the majority of these receivers in this draft. What I'm seeing a bunch of height numbers that start with 5s. which I don't really love for a receiver. But Bill, let me go to you.
Hold on a second, Stacey. I want to say women are really, really sensitive when a man's height starts at 5. I've noticed that. Now, I don't date anymore because I'm married.
Yes. Good
sorry
call.
to everyone that's watching.
Good
but
call.
I see all these women saying, if his height starts with a 5, I don't want him. And I'm like, whoa. All right. If there's not multiple digits in your bank account, we don't want you ladies. So, be sensitive here. We get taller when our shoes are on too. So I don't want to hear anything about that. Let's not be so sensitive about the height of the wide receivers here, Stacy.
Well, okay. So I'm going to rabbit trail real quick on that for you, because I know that when we, I think on the show had been talking about quarterbacks, we brought up, do we talk about Tanner McKee? And we're kind of like, well, it was like you said on the online dating thing. And I don't know if there's a lot of people out there that are going to know what I'm talking about here. There's this thing. It's like, is he hot or is he tall? Which is it? And so that's where we're kind of like, well, Tanner McKee, is he good or is he just really tall? I don't know. So that when you said that made me, that's exactly who I went to in my head. I was like, oh yeah, Tanner McKee, is he hot or is he tall? So I think he's just tall.
Hearing you guys talking about Tanner McKee, I mean, right now he is a projected 3rd-round draft pick from Stanford. Mm-hmm. It's important too to know about guys like this, because the Twitter echo chamber gets to be one way or another. And as fantasy football content consumers, we all go to Twitter a lot, right? Yeah. We could say that safely. We're all friends. We share content, this and that, and people, and they pick and choose who they want to talk to. But it's really important to not necessarily care so much what we say about these players. The NFL is going to dictate to you who is relevant. And then after that, it is our job to tell you who's going to be fantasy relevant. So there's a big difference between NFL relevance and fantasy relevance. And listen, if Tanner McKee is a 3rd-round draft pick, like Davis Mills was, you got a couple good, solid starting seasons out of Davis Mills. Now, solid, he was startable. He was a starting quarterback, so therefore he was startable. That's important, okay? Because like I say, in the Dynasty Rewind, we're going to hate players, we hate values, so it depends where this guy goes. So it's great that you were talking about him. I love where your head's at there. Tanner McKee from Stanford. Yeah, and you know what? Can I give you my other sleeper? Because this is why it's important. Davis Allen, tight end from Clemson. How many people have talked about Davis Allen? Tight end from Clemson?
No one that I've heard. I actually had to go look him up today. I was like, I've looked at tight ends, have not looked at Davis Allen here. Tell me about it. What do I need to know?
They call me the tight end whisperer at the Dynasty Rewind. So Davis Allen currently is a 6th-round draft pick. Okay, his ADP is all projected. NFL mock draft database.com is where you want to go. If you ever see people on Twitter, like, look at this mock I did, that's where you go to do mocks. You could do it for your favorite team. Bill could do it for the Bills. Stacy, I don't know what your favorite team is.
Go, Pack, go.
Okay, great. Packers. And I'm an Eagles fan, so I just draft quarterbacks to piss people off.
There you go.
But look, the fact is, there is some buzz around Davis Allen. Okay, he was underutilized at Clemson when Clemson didn't really have good wide receivers. So I'm kind of bummed that not only did DJU not look for him, but they didn't game plan for this guy either. And look, DJU, he's not a guy that I'm in on. Although transferring to Oregon State could be good for him, much like that was the guy that went from Oklahoma to South Carolina.
Why
am I blanking here?
What is his name?
Yeah.
Someone in chat. If you have if you know who it is, let us know.
Yeah, well, I'm not okay, but anyway, so I don't know why I'm blanking on this right now. So he didn't really look for the tight end a lot too. And there's some quarterbacks. Spencer Rattler, thank you.
Rattler.
There we go.
Yeah,
okay.
Spencer Rattler. He didn't look for the tight end a lot, but let me talk to you about Davis Allen. So less than 1,000 yards in 4 years of college, okay? But his best year was last year, 443 yards and 5 touchdowns, which for a collegiate tight end is actually not bad. 11.4 yards per reception, 39 receptions, okay? So looking at him, he's a little sluggish after the catch, but physicality, he fights hard. Every time he has the ball in his hands, lines up everywhere, used in motion a lot. I think they could have done more for him. He's a really solid blocker, which is important too. This gets you on the field early. So if you have a super late draft, 5-6 rounds, or you're picking up priority UDFAs, if this guy's a 6th-round draft pick, I think he could get on the field pretty early. I mean, there's a lot of guys I like, but Davis Allen, he's actually one of my higher ranked tight ends, to be honest with you. My lowest ranked is Tucker Kraft. I want to talk about Tucker Kraft just real quick, and then we'll get to Bill sleepers.
Yeah.
Everyone keeps saying Tucker Kraft is athletic. Tucker Kraft is the slowest Caucasian I've ever seen play football. This dude is big and he can block, but they're like, oh, he's the next Dallas Goedert. What did I tell you about scouting the helmet? Just because he plays for South Dakota State does not mean he is the next Dallas Goedert. It's like, he's athletic. I was like, he's 7 inches taller than the guy defending him. He just reached up and caught the ball. That's not athletic. That's just putting your arm up.
Come on. What'd I say? Is he hot or is he tall?
I don't care. He's a terrible football player.
He's just tall. He's just a big dude.
He is a big dude. I will say this. What he's going to get overdrafted because he's a fantastic blocker. Okay. So again, remember what I told you. The NFL is going to tell you whether or not a player is relevant. Come to Fantasy and Frames, come to the Dynasty Rewind. We're going to tell you if a player is fantasy relevant. I don't think he's fantasy relevant. Let your league mates overdraft him and scoop up value elsewhere.
Yeah.
Don't draft Tucker Kraft.
I'm always a little hesitant with the rookie tight ends anyway, right at first anyway. But yeah, that's definitely a good point. Bill, talk to me about some of your sleepers. Who's on your radar?
Well, I mean, Mike, he stole my Jaden Reed.
Sorry.
Guy, I saw the question straight away in my mind to Jaden Reed. I scrolled down and I was like, oh, okay, well, that's that out the window. So I'm going to take Jonathan Mingo, wide receiver from Ole Miss. 6'2", 220, running the 4.4s. I think it was a 4.46 40 time. When you put the tape on, you have to sort of double take because you think you're watching, you think you've gone back a few years and you're watching AJ Brown. For Ole Miss, but it's not. It's Jonathan Mingo. They obviously have a type there at Ole Miss. He's unrefined. He's shown improvements in his route running and his ability to win without just using his pure physicality. He's a guy I think he's going to need time. He's going to need patience in the NFL, but he definitely could be a diamond in the rough and a guy that if I'm in the 4th round or late 3rd round, like Mike said, it can get ugly around there. He's a guy I'm going to be looking for, and let's see where he lands. Is he a guy I can stash in my taxi and see what an NFL team can do with him? And before I get to my next one, who, if you're fans of the show, you'll know exactly who I'm going to be talking about next. I just want to make sure, has Davis Allen finished his 40-yard dash yet, or is he still running it?
He might still be running it, to be honest.
He should be finished by the time the draft starts, so that's good for him.
I did see that when I pulled it up, and I was like, oh, and then it was so many of them didn't do it, and I think he was like the 4th out of 5 that actually did.
Yeah, he shouldn't have bothered. Okay, look, I don't know if he counts as a sleeper anymore, but he did when I started driving the bandwagon, so I'm bringing him up. It's Israel Abanikanda, and listen, when I it was mid-Feb and I said, listen, I am driving this bandwagon. This is the guy. You put the tape on and it's just awesome. It's hard running. He doesn't go backwards. He hits the hole hard. And once he gets into open space, he's gone. This is when most of and not even just Dynasty players, like most of the Dynasty content creators thought he was like Israel Adesanya's brother, the UFC champion. They didn't know who this guy was. Yeah, this is a guy that he's gone from being projected to be drafted in the 5th round, 4th round. Now people are saying he's not going to get out of day 2. He's not going to get outside of the 3rd round of the NFL draft. So he's going to get the draft capital. I think he's the top 3 running back in the class. So if you're still looking at guys like Zach Charbonnet or Tank Bigsby and totally ignoring Izzy Abanikanda, you need to rethink and you need to have a look. Izzy Abanikanda, for me, great player.
I will stand for no Zach Charbonnet slander on this show.
I know you like Zach Charbonnet, and I think Mike likes Tank Bigsby, so I was taking some digs. I do
want to say too, Bill. I love so Jonathan Mingo is what DLF's ADP. Current ADP is March. ADP for April's not up yet, but he's the 51st player off the board. He's wide receiver 19. One other guy too. 2 picks later than that, Charlie Jones from Purdue. Watch some Charlie Jones film. Yes. Also, another sleeper from Purdue is Payne Durham, tight end. He could have like a Daniel Bellinger-esque type ascension. Mid-round draft pick started from day 1. So those 2 Purdue players. Charlie Jones, I actually talked about him this past week on the Dynasty Rewind. It was either today's episode or Friday. I don't know. Just subscribe to the podcast and listen to it. You'll figure it out. He actually led the NCAA and the Big Ten in receptions last year. So 110 receptions. This is a guy who played at Iowa for 2 years. Bless his soul for putting up with Iowa's offense for 2 years. Two great sleepers from Purdue right there.
Yeah, he was definitely. I talked about him either last week or week before last, something like that. Anyway, I'm a huge Charlie Jones fan. He converted me. I had no idea who he was before we got our list out, and I started watching his film and I learned more about him. And I am all aboard the Charlie Jones bandwagon.
I see Jorge asking about A.T. Perry. Does he want me to talk about A.T. Perry real quick? Let me hold on a second. Sorry, there he is. So a Taurean A.T. Perry, he doesn't have elite speed and he flails when he runs a little bit. But he's 6'3", 195. So he's one of the rare perimeter wide receivers in this class. You have him, Xavier Hutchinson, I think Mingo and Jaden Reed, guys like that could be perimeter guys, but you don't have a lot of size. Obviously Quentin Johnson, I'm not forgetting about him, but he's not a sleeper. You know what I mean? He's smooth off the line. His route running is a little rounded. So his routes aren't very crisp. A little bit of a body catcher, but he does have an ability to track the ball and adjust for the ball in the air, which is very good. Coaches love that in the NFL. Better what I anticipated for his frame at yards after the catch. And he's not the most physical runner, but he's very tough at the catch point. So ball tracking, ball adjusting, tough at the catch point, size, fast enough. This is a guy that I like a lot. I actually graded him out on the Dynasty Rewind rating scale. He graded out a 5.75, which puts him at, let me scroll back up. That puts him at a 4th round pick currently. And that's just a film score. Obviously things could be different, but the fact of the matter is with the way this class is very heavy at the running back position, and it's also very heavy the defensive line and defensive back position. Some of these skill players are going to get pushed down, but I think he could be a player in the 4th round. So I like Perry.
I like flails when he runs. That kind of
he flails his arms weird. It's like, what are you doing there?
What does he do? You started to do it there.
For everyone watching. Yeah. You missed out if you couldn't see behind the scenes.
Yeah,
if you're subscribed to the YouTube, you'll be able to see it. So go subscribe to the Fantasy and Friends YouTube.
It's like Mike's done this once before, like just
a few times.
Stace. Yeah. Before we move on, you've heard my sleeper, you've heard my sleeper. Who's your sleeper?
Oh, mine. So I am really when you said Mingo, that totally reminded me about Jonathan Mingo because I completely forgotten about him, but I really like him as well. So all aboard the Mingo train. But I'm a big fan of Marvin MMs. Out of Oklahoma. Love Marvin MMs. My big concern though about him is that he's smaller, right? So he's 5'10", 183, I think that was his combine weight. Little bit on the slender side. So if he's gonna, I want to say, I think I looked up the stats. There's the average NFL receiver is 190. And so he's almost there, but just a little bit on the slider side. So my big concern for him is that he needs to gain some pounds on his frame. So, if he gets hit, he can actually withstand those hits. But the thing, though, is that defenders are going to have to catch him first because that guy is fast. I think he ran like the 4th fastest 40 at the combine. I could be wrong on that, but I know it was really high up there. But I'm trying to think now. I was like, I just talked about somebody else too recently who had a quick score, so I'm wondering if I'm confusing them. But anyway, I really like him. He gets a ton of separation. Love that in a receiver. I'm just a big Marvin MMs fan. What do you guys think about him? You guys like Marvin?
I'm going to disagree with you slightly in the fact where the size concerned, just because he's the same height, but he's heavier than Jordan Addison. He's significantly bigger than Josh Downs. He's a little bit smaller than Jalen Hyatt, but like a little bit. But he has some of the best hands in the class.
Yeah, agreed.
Honestly, just the way he goes back, and another guy that tracks the ball well, just very good after the catch. I love Marvin MMs. The reason I had considered putting him on here, but to be honest with you, after draft weekend, I don't think we will be able to consider Marvin MMs a sleeper anymore. I think he's going to get drafted higher than the fantasy community believes. He does everything really well. Another quick sleeper for you guys. You want the best slot wide receiver in the class, Parker Washington from Penn State. Built like Deebo Samuel, runs like a running back after the catch.
Did Josh Downs die?
No, but he's not a sleeper because he
I just heard best slot and I got hyped.
I think Josh Downs will be put on the perimeter here and there. To be honest with you, he did a lot at UNC, and I think he has the speed to do it. Same thing with a guy like Zay Flowers. They have the speed to go outside.
Yeah.
Parker Washington does not have that elite speed, but he has the physicality to be a pure slot wide receiver in the NFL. He takes hard shots, physical at the catch point, but he does not have elite separation, elite, ball skills and stuff like that. He has to compensate with physicality. So that's why I think he projects as a pure 100% slot wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I've got Downs just because of his size and his build. I've got him pure slot. Zay Flowers for me is a different story. Even at that size, I think he's going to be used all over the field. I think he's an absolute stud. But yeah, Parker Washington, I'll keep an eye out.
Yeah.
Well, I think, Bill, you had one more receiver, right, that you had on your list that you want to talk about? I think that was that Xavier Hutchinson?
Yeah, Xavier Hutchinson. He's a guy I also like, and I don't think he's getting the props that he deserves. I put the film on a couple of weeks ago, and straight away I got Adam Thielen sort of vibes from him, which, if he has that kind of career, if you have anywhere close to that kind of career, he's going to be a guy that would be great to draft in the third round of your rookie drafts. He's an unspectacular athlete. He runs in the 4.5s. He's not going to wow anybody. He's not going to run away from anybody. But he's a solid receiver. He gets in and out of his breaks well. He shows great body control and an ability to work his way back to the football. He's a guy that I like, and I don't think he's getting the props that he deserves.
Absolutely. I know we talked about him a while ago, so I remember Xavier Hutchinson a lot. All right, guys. It looks like we've got a couple questions in the chat here. It looks like Chris, first question, wants to know y'all's thoughts on Tyler Scott out of Cincinnati since he's been creeping up the draft boards.
He has. Tyler Scott is another undersized receiver, 5'10", 177. This is a common theme with this draft class, which is weird. But Tyler Scott is a burner, and he's a separator. I kind of feel right now Tyler Scott is probably going to be a better best ball receiver than startable fantasy asset on your team. That's not saying that he's not going to have a good career, okay, or be a good player. He could turn out to be really good. His separation is above average until he plays against weaker defensive backs. Okay, then his separation is borderline elite, but good burst, good long speed, hands are good, some body catches here or there. But playing without Desmond Ridder was a bit of a detriment, although he did have a good season last year, almost 900 yards. You couldn't get one more yard and get right to 900, could you? Definitely going to need to fill his frame out a little bit more. But I like Tyler Scott, and I would take a stab on him. If he was there in the 5th round, and I was drafting late in the 5th round, I would take a chance on him or as a UDFA.
Okay. All right. So also we've got, here from Austin, who's the most overrated or guy you feel in the fantasy football universe who's being overhyped? Somebody's going to be targeted a significant amount less than compared to the masses. Bill, who do you think's being overhyped?
Zach Charbonnet.
Oh,
really?
I said no slander.
I just don't see it. I just don't. I put the tape on. I don't see anything spectacular. I don't see anything that he does at the college level that he's going to be able to, like how he wins at the college level. Mm-hmm. Do I see that translating in him being able to win in the NFL doing that? Not consistently. For me, just he's a guy that everyone's hyping is the 3rd best back in the class, and I just don't see it. He's not in my top 5.
No, Mike, do you have any more love for Charbonnet?
I like Charbonnet, but you want to see me really piss somebody off? I think Anthony Richardson is way overhyped, to be honest with you. I understand that he played at Florida and he played in the SEC. Really should have came back for his senior season. But at the end of the day, he made a really good business decision because you think about it, he would have to go against Caleb Williams. He'd have to go against Drake May next year. He's not as good. He is very, very athletic. I admit that. The guy could throw the ball farther than almost anybody. You know who else could throw the ball really far? Aaron Brooks could throw the ball a country mile, as they said. Aaron Brooks was not a great NFL quarterback. He had his flashes. But I think Anthony Richardson's going to get overdrafted. And there are guys who I feel like are going to be safer picks where he's going that are going to get you fantasy points right now. Right now and in the next few years, if I'm drafting where he's going, I don't want to have to stash somebody with the 104 or the 105 for a year. I don't want to do that. Give me Jahmyr Gibbs. Give me somebody that can play. I want production on my roster. I want points. I want to win. I don't want to wait.
Yeah, better to produce now, I think, for sure, than just sitting waiting for somebody hoping that they do something. All right. Well, okay. So sleepers. So we talked about Charbonnet. He came up. So with that being said, I want to go on to some more running back talk, which I'm going to ask you guys now that, I don't know, Bill, like since you don't like Charbonnet as your top 3, you kind of ruined my question here. So
Sorry.
Still going to go with it. So guys, after Robinson, Bijan, Jahmyr Gibbs, Zach Charbonnet, or whoever you want to put in your third spot, who are you guys looking at for running backs that are going to be either late first, second, early round? Who are the next guys besides those top 3 or top 2 for some of us?
Yeah, so for some reason, people hate Tank Bigsby now because he didn't transfer out of Auburn and go somewhere else. Bill, you're not a Tank Bigsby fan? No, that's okay. You don't have to like Tank Bigsby. That's fine. But where he's going, we love the value at the Dynasty Rewind. I saw that his ADP was the 211 at one point. What are we doing here? People are taking Zach Evans over Tank Bigsby. You know what the main difference between Tank Bigsby and Zach Evans is? I'll tell you. Tank Bigsby is a good running back. That is the difference between Tank Bigsby and Zach Evans. Tank Bigsby Zach Evans takes what's there. He avoids contact. By all means, he's so athletic. He's so athletically gifted, and yet he doesn't do anything with it. Tank Bigsby will make you pay. He will wear you down, and he's an above-average receiver too. You could be getting in the early to mid to sometimes late second round, depending on your league format, a 3-down NFL running back. Give me Tank Bigsby and the value. And another guy I like, the better TCU running back, Kendre Miller, another guy who's big, who can move, who can catch the ball, run between the tackles, good vision, punishing tackler. For the size that we lack in the wide receivers in this class, we make up for it in the running back room. There's a lot of guys in here that the 1990s NFL would love to have. You know what I mean? We got Tank Bigsby, you got Zach Charbonnet, you got Kendre Miller. We just got bruisers. Bijan Robinson, and the guy that I want the Eagles to draft, Jahmyr Gibbs. He's not the biggest guy, but I love Jahmyr Gibbs too. I think he fits our scheme better.
You like him better than Robinson there?
Well, Bijan Robinson would be great in Philadelphia, but Jahmyr Gibbs, just what he brings to the table, I think would fit in better with Nick Sirianni's system. But I love Tank Bigsby. I love Kendre Miller. And Bill, I'm looking at your guys here. I love both of those guys too. There's another guy I want to throw out there too, Roderick Thompson from Texas Tech. We're talking about a mauler. He is it, and he could be a guy that NFL teams really love too, as well as Tavion Thomas from Utah. There's just big, bruising, physical goal line backs, short yardage backs. Evan Hall from Northwestern as well. Big, 5'10", 214, but he's a really good receiver too. So a bunch of guys right there. Stock up on those late round picks. Draft the value with these two dudes, Tank and Kendre.
I love a running back that's also dual threat that you can use in the receiving game. That's one of my big things that I'm looking for in running backs when I'm drafting. But Bill, who you got? Who's on your list?
So for me, listen, we talk about running backs. We're going to be talking about Israel Abanikanda. I know we spoke about him a couple of minutes ago, but for me, he's the RB3 in this class. I've got him, obviously everyone's got Bijan Robinson 1, and most sane people have Jahmyr Gibbs 2. Next up for me is Abanikanda. I just think you look at the age, one of the youngest prospects in the whole draft. You look at the speed. He's just, I said this when we did our scouting review for the Dynasty 365 pod. When I watched him, and I was trying to pick holes in him, and it just reminded me of DK Metcalf. And I know it's a completely different position, but everyone was trying to go, oh, he's too big, he's too stiff, he's too muscly. He's just a freak. He's a freak athlete that found his way onto the gridiron and dominated. And Abanikanda's the same, but at the running back position for me. So don't let him fall. Don't let him drop. For me, he's RB3 quite clearly. Kendre Miller was my RB4, and at RB5, I have Tajay Spears. He's a guy that I really like. I didn't expect to like him, but, over 1,500 yards this year for Tulane. He's got the speed, he's got the agility, he's got pretty good vision, something that I didn't expect. And what I loved about him was that change of direction ability whilst he's running at full speed. Like, it's almost like he can preempt where the defender's going to go, and whilst at full speed, change of direction. And he's got some moves as well. I love that little shake and bake he's got. He's an elusive runner. One of my favorite guys in the class. And if the Bills can't get Abanikanda, give me Tajay Spears.
I was gonna say, are we gonna have to talk you off a ledge if the Bills don't draft Abanikanda?
Maybe.
Are you gonna be okay?
Yeah. No, probably not.
Hey, James Cook, man. RB1.
I like James Cook. But I want him as RB2 behind Israel Banakanda.
But yeah, he doesn't love him as much as Izzy. Like, and
Mm.
everybody, when you can't get Izzy outside the first round of your draft, go ahead and just message at Bill_Mustafa. Okay, that's who you want to talk to, because that's
I'm
who's
going to.
Izzy has a lot of heart, man.
There's another guy too, Dwayne McBride from UAB. And if you hate Conference USA running backs, and I find out you ever had a share of Elijah Mitchell on your team, I'm going to call you a fraud. Dwayne McBride had 1,713 yards rushing. He led the NCAA. Actually, he was second behind some guy from Air Force. I'm sorry. 1,000 of his yards were after contact. So,
but nobody was playing against could tackle, so that makes sense.
Well, let's be real here. They don't have the offensive line to match up against LSU's or teams like that. You know what I mean? Because they did play against LSU, and he had nowhere to run. He just didn't have anywhere to go. He only had 5 career catches. If you watch the UAB film, you will see that they just didn't throw to him. There's a lot of times he was open too. There's another back. I can't remember his name, but I call him Discount Devon A. Chain. But he's very similar play style. But so Dwayne McBride has 5 career catches. He's a much better player than that. And I saw somebody asking about Sean Tucker. Yes. I'm concerned about Sean Tucker. RB3 is too high for me right now. And it's not about what Sean Tucker has done this offseason. It's about what he hasn't done. He hasn't done anything to improve his draft stock. Is he hurt? We don't know. They say that he's hurt, but what's the injury? He's not telling anybody. He's not participating in the combine. He's not participating in his pro day. I think he's a very, very, very gifted running back. Very strong runner, good receiver, but his draft stock is just slipping. And if he doesn't get drafted highly, you have to question things too. Always don't be afraid to reevaluate your processes. Take the L when you're wrong. Celebrate your victories when you're right. But if Sean Tucker if he's not doing anything, you're worried about the draft capital is going to force me to drop him if the projections are correct. Yeah, then that's okay. Then stay tuned to Fantasy and Frames. They're gonna tell you who to draft instead. Kendre Miller. Give me Kendre Miller over Sean Tucker right now. Bill probably agrees with me. So do you, Stacy, right?
Yeah, I mean, I do. And, there is a name that I was thinking of that I haven't heard yet tonight. What about Kenny McIntosh? I'm a big Kenny McIntosh fan. He's pretty high in my running back rankings. I just really like him because I think they, at Georgia, they used him a lot in the passing game as well. If you're playing in PPR, I think that's going to be great for you because he's got that ability to kind of do both. Like most of the modern running backs that we've got nowadays, like your Derrick Henrys, your Nick Chubbs, those guys, more pure runners, whereas you're looking at, your Tony Pollards, those kind of guys, they can bring that catching ability into the game too. And I really like that about Kenny McIntosh.
Me too. I think he's a really good receiver. He's actually, to me, a better receiver than runner, but he does run pretty hard. And he projects to me as a third down back. I have him graded out as a 3rd round pick. That might be a little high. But what I saw from him, I really liked, and he's pretty elusive too, and he's really good vision. His hands are pretty good. He does have a clunky catch occasionally here and there, but I like Kenny McIntosh a lot. And you're right, not a lot of people are talking about him. Dude's going in like 4th and 5th rounds of draft. One thing that's important too is I tell everybody at some point in every season you're playing 0 RB. So if you can get back into your draft and scoop up some of these depth guys, if you would have drafted Zonovan Knight last year, and your team was out of contention, you could have sold him for a 3rd round pick because I was buying him for 3rd round picks trying to compete. So, but Zonovan Knight is a really good buy low for me right now as well. Breece Hall might not be ready to start the season. And Michael Carter is 3rd on the depth chart behind Zonovan Knight. Probably get him cheap.
That was one of my big concerns about Breece Hall. Now that you brought that up, is that if he does come back, to start the season, is he going to be at full speed? Are they going to be letting him go at 100%? Right. So that's, that worries me a little bit about with Breece anyway. Next year, I'll probably be a little bit higher on him, be fully back from that injury. But this year going in right at the beginning makes me a little nervous. Gives me, I don't know, not good vibes.
So there's a question here about a low-key FCS player worth reaching in the draft. That's a really good question. I'm looking, not anybody that I've scouted yet. That's a really good question because the FCS every year always has 1 or 2 guys that pop. You might get like a quarterback here or there, but this year it doesn't seem to be that way that I've seen. There's a couple guys from smaller FBS schools. Like Cameron Peoples from App State,
Okay.
running back. He's a pretty big dude. 6'1", 215.
Yeah, we talked about him on our one of our running back episodes. Yep.
Yeah, he's not the best, but he's pretty decent. If anyone ever tries to tell you I'm Billy Kemp from Virginia, stay away from him. By the way, he's terrible. I don't know if you guys have watched film on him.
Yeah.
But there is a wide receiver who got a little bit of hype, Demario Davis from Liberty, but he's really small. He's 5'7". I know it's not FCS, but it's a smaller school. Yeah, there's a lot of here. The problem too with FCS schools is it's hard for us to really find film on those guys. We got to do a lot of digging for that. So it's tough. I mean, if you're looking for like the next, well, there you go. Tucker Kraft. That's an FCS school. People like Tucker Kraft. So Tucker Kraft is my answer, even though I don't like him. But if the value is good, if you get him in the 5th round, I'm okay with Tucker Kraft there.
Yeah. If at that point you're just getting dart throws anyway for the most part. So
exactly.
Yeah. All right, guys. So I love this discussion on our guys that are coming up for the draft now. But before we go, I want to do just a real quick and dirty overview of some of these trendy top guys coming out of the 2024 draft. We got 3 names here I want to talk about. First off, my favorite that I would be willing to do, like give away whatever picks you want to get a top pick in 2024 to get Marvin Harrison Jr. That is my guy. I love it. One of my favorite things about watching the CJ Stroud film for tonight was getting to watch Marvin Harrison. So I love that guy. Do you guys share in the Marvin Harrison love?
I have a question.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Mike.
When you say you would give up a 24 pick, are you talking about for the Packers or for your?
Ooh.
Because
I was just talking about my specific dynasty team, but honestly, I think it would be a crime to have Jordan Love throw to Marvin Harrison Jr.
Me too. I agree.
do. I think they would have to just straight to jail. Straight to jail. Like no.
At
He
the
needs
same
to go
point in time,
you can really just make those passes to him and just really bring out all of the amazingness that he has to offer. I could go on about Marvin.
A good wide receiver makes a mediocre quarterback better. We've seen that time and time again. Devonta Smith definitely helped Jalen Hurts' progression as an NFL quarterback. So Marvin Harrison Jr. could be the same type of person for Jordan Love or something like that. The only problem with good prospects like this is they tend to go to bad teams, unfortunately, because they get drafted highly. Marvin Harrison, they should make some sort of exemption. Let him declare for the draft right now. I don't want to wait another year. I also don't want to see him play against Penn State anymore. I'm tired of it. They always reload that wide receiver room out there. I love Marvin Harrison Jr. My preliminary scouting for 2024, which I'm behind on because I'm still working on this class. He's my wide receiver 1.
Come on, get with the program, Mike. Jeez,
Sorry.
Slacking over there. My goodness.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. But he's definitely the wide receiver 1 in the 2024 class. I don't think it's very close right now. I mean, he's the guy that everybody's talking about. He's got the hype. People are like, why did he go to Ohio State? Brian Hartline.
Yeah.
Because Brian Hartline's there, and Brian Hartline develops really good wide receivers.
I mean, that's just when I was doing the CJ Stroud, looking at that, I was just like, how many guys does he have? How many options does he have to throw to? It's not fair. Yeah. Just amazing. Oh yeah. Chris B with that hashtag don't win for Harrison is the 20. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's, oh man. I hope my dynasty team is bad next year just so I can have a chance. That's what I'm hoping. Bill.
Never hope that your dynasty team is bad.
Well, okay,
I know what you're saying, though. I know what you're saying.
Bill, Marvin Harrison Jr., do you love him as much as we do?
Yeah, absolute stud. I think if he should have been allowed to declare, like Mike said this year, he should have been allowed to leave school early, and he would have been wide receiver 1. He's better than Smith and Jigba. He's better than Addison. He's better than Jalen Hyatt, Quentin Johns, all those guys. He would have been wide receiver 1 in this class. He's going to come out next year and be wide receiver 1 in that class. He might have been wide receiver 1 in last year's class. He's just an absolute stud. He's a guy that you're going to be having the same conversations that we're having now, where you see, we were talking about, if you've got the 101 and your team's really poor, do you take Bijan Robinson or do you take the quarterback? I think we're going to have the same conversations next year. It's the guy we're going to be talking about next, Caleb Williams, or Drake May. Do you take him at 101? Or do you go, listen, I'll just deal with quarterback somewhere else and I'll go and get Marv Harrison Jr. I'll go and get the next Justin Jefferson, the next Jamar Chase. I'll go and get that guy, and I'll figure quarterback out. I think he's that kind of talent, that kind of prospect. And hopefully I'm pinpointing the bad dynasty teams in my league, and I'm trying to take the 24 first-round picks off of them so I can have a successful team and still draft him. That's my plan.
Yeah.
There you go. That's Bill. That's the better way to do it. We're not endorsing tanking for Harrison. Okay, guys. Okay.
Bill, I just slightly disagree with one thing. How could he be wide receiver 1 in last year's class when Drake London was in last year's class?
Yeah.
Oh no, this is on YouTube, and I talked about Drake London. Sorry, if anybody follows the Dynasty Rewind YouTube channel, anytime we talk about Drake London, it is such a massive crap show because people just go nuts over this guy. He was wide receiver 31 last year. Do you know who was ahead of him last year? Adam Thielen in one of his worst seasons as a professional football player. Beat it with the Drake London stuff, people. Get over it. And Derek, if you're still watching there, you can tell everybody I said it like you wanted me to.
Well, I mean, the Falcons weren't worried about they weren't worried about getting their fantasy guys, targets because they were winning, and that's what they cared about. So, who cares about Drake London and Kyle Pitts, right? Not me at all, for sure, right?
So you got a question from
yeah, we do.
From Gator here.
Gator wants to know, okay, so is Harrison, Harrison, better than Olave?
Yes.
Yeah? What about Garrett Wilson?
Garrett Wilson's the closest.
Okay.
I would agree with that.
But I'm still taking Marv. Marv's different. Marv is different.
Mm-hmm.
He is.
For me.
How do you think, all right, question, just totally random here, just thought of it. Marvin Harrison Jr., Marvin Harrison Sr. Who's better?
Completely different player.
Okay.
Yeah, but
it's just
let's go with a guy that's done it.
Yeah, it's Harrison Sr. was a smaller, just really shifty route runner, and not saying that Harrison Jr. doesn't have that, but he has the size speed that his dad didn't have. So also different eras of playing too.
Definitely.
That's really hard to say. We'll just call it a tie. How's that?
Harrison Sr. was my Devonta Smith comp.
Ooh.
If that gives anyone that never saw Senior play an idea of the kind of
so good.
Oh,
so good.
I was such a huge Colts fan during that era with him and Peyton. Oh my goodness. Reggie Wayne. Oh man. Oh, those were the good days.
Stacy outing herself as a bandwagon.
I am. You know what? That's okay. I'm not a bandwagon fan. We can go into this more later. I was a Peyton Manning fan. But anyway, yeah. So guys, Caleb Williams. Okay. So what about this quarterback, Caleb Williams? How do you guys think he stacks up with the guys in his class or with the guys even that are coming out this year? How do you feel about him?
Ooh, I think he'd be quarterback 1 if he was coming out this year, much like Marvin Harrison would be wide receiver 1. Caleb Williams is it. Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's still a little bit raw, but he's got another year to polish things up. And he did the smart thing going from Oklahoma to USC with Lincoln Riley, because why wouldn't you? Look, there's certain teams that put out certain positions. Ohio State with wide receivers, Georgia running backs, and Lincoln Riley and quarterbacks. He gets dudes drafted. Okay. Baker Mayfield, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray. Sure there's people that I'm forgetting there too. I'm old, it's late. But yeah, he's smart going with him. And, honorable mention to Drake May. It's going to be a really good quarterback class next year too. There's other guys too that came back too, like Tanner Mordecai, Phil Jukovic, Sam Hartman, guys like that, Devin Leary that stayed in college another year. The 2024 class is going to have a lot of veterans in it. Spencer Sanders transferred to Ole Miss, who I think he wins that job from Jackson Dart, by the way, because I don't think that Jackson Dart's that great. So next year's class is going to be really interesting, which sucks for me because I hate scouting quarterbacks because it takes forever. So it's going to be interesting, though.
All right, guys. So our last person that we're going to talk about from the 2024 class is running back out of Michigan, Blake Quorum. Bill, what are your thoughts about Blake?
He's a guy I've not seen too much of, as in I've not dived into the tape. It's only when I've watched Michigan play. Yeah. Talented running back, of course. I don't know if he's going to be a guy that is a stud at the college level and doesn't necessarily translate to Sundays. But he's definitely a guy I'm excited to watch next season and dive into a little bit more. But for as of right now, he's probably RB1 in the 24 class.
Yeah, same here. I hadn't watched a ton of his film, but I watched a little bit today, and he's a little on the shorter side, which is fine, but he's thick, right? Like he's like a little bowling ball. And I mean, he just kind of, I was like, am I watching a video game? Is this a real game that I'm watching? I mean, he's just zipping all over the field. So yeah, I mean, like he's going to be really exciting to watch next year. And I'm looking forward to that. Mike, do you have any thoughts on Blake Corum?
Yeah, why draft Blake Corum when you could draft Taurean Henderson, man?
Ooh,
You want to talk about a guy who could be the widest or the running back one. I like Taurean Henderson a lot. I don't hate Blake Corum, but yeah, there is a little bit of a size concern when you're looking at it. Quorum is 5'8", 200. So yeah, he is stocky enough, like Evan Hall, who's 5'10", 214. Scale these guys around. They're about the same. But Travion's 5'10", 215. I think he's a little bit faster. Last year he had 1,200 yards. Blake Corum, he had a good year too. He had 1,400 yards. So, and Chris, Michael Penix, I forgot about him because he plays in Washington, man. People forget it. Washington's where you go to die. All right, that's just what happens.
I thought that was Florida.
DJU is going to be he's going to be coming out next year too, as is Spencer Rattler. So next year we're going to have to draft a lot, or we're going to have to scout a lot of quarterbacks. Bill, we're going to be going crazy. And yeah, Rocket
I'm not
Sanders.
scouting those two.
I hate scouting quarterbacks. You scout all my quarterbacks for me. Raheem Sanders from Arkansas, another guy that could very well push to be running back one. So I'm a Quorum fan, but I would probably go Henderson, Sanders, Quorum in that order. I wouldn't put him at my running back one right now.
Okay. All right. Well, those are some pretty trendy names. I think we're going to hear a lot about those guys coming up here pretty soon. The season goes by so fast. So I just want to say huge thank you to Mike Bauer for coming on the show tonight.
Thanks for having me.
I have had the best time. So appreciate you so much sharing your info, spending your time with us here. Guys, make sure to give him a follow on Twitter at Rewind CEO, and then over at the Dynasty Rewind podcast at Dynasty Rewind. Mike, you got anything exciting that you're working on between now and the draft?
I do, but we can't tell you yet. We are announcing it on draft weekend. So stay tuned. We're going to be doing some live streams on draft weekend, which is a rarity. Gator, you happy now? We're doing live streams. We're all going to be at Nate's house for the draft in Maryland. So we're doing a live stream Friday, Saturday, and Sunday morning. And if you are a patron of ours, we will be putting out bonus Patreon content throughout that time as well. So I'm going to be very tired when the draft is over. But we have an announcement coming. Some things are being finalized. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. All right, stay tuned for that. All right, guys. So everybody else, you can follow us on Twitter at Bill_Mustafa. You can follow me at Stacy_Perez83. You can follow the show at Dynasty365 show. Don't forget to check out our website at fantasyandframes.com. Subscribe to the pod on YouTube. Thank you all so much for listening and all of your questions. We will see you back next week with a very special guest. And good night, everybody.